Listeners, fans, all the above, we are back to our next segment. We're talking the next active sport right now, NBA. Never a dull moment in this league. Alex always comes in with the hot takes. What do we got this week?
Yeah, the NBA is in full swing. We're going to get into kind of a bunch of different topics this week. But first off, I'm going to go over the basketball ones. I'm tied for first at 7-2, beating James this week pretty handedly, I'd say so myself. James is still going along strong, though, at 6-3. And then, Tyler, you beat Traden.
Yes.
So you're now 4-5. What a record.
Getting
Traden,
there.
3-6 down there. Kylie has officially surpassed you in the rankings.
Yeah, she is soaring right now. She's
her team's
loving every minute of it too.
Yeah, her team is killing it. So got to give a shout out to Kylie there. But yeah, moving into the actual, what's going on in the real basketball league, not our fake one. I don't know how we haven't talked about this yet, but just like every other major sport, the playoffs have changed this year for basketball. So typically what happens is the 8 best teams record-wise in each conference make the playoffs. 1 plays 8, 2 plays 7, on and on and on. This season, technically 10 teams will playoffs. Teams 1 through 6 are going to be, it's kind of same old. And then teams, this is very confusing, so let me read it out. It's really dumb. Teams 7 and 8 will play each other 1 game. Whichever one of those teams wins that game is then the 7 seed going into the playoffs. Then teams 9 and 10 also play each other 1 game. Whoever wins that plays the loser of teams 7 and 8. And then whoever wins that is then the 8 seed. Did you follow that?
I hate that.
Barely.
Okay.
It's like college football playoffs.
Yeah, kind of. But so if you're a 7,
it should really be a best out of 3.
It really should be. So if you're a 7 or an 8 seed going into this little mini tournament, you just got to win 1 game and then you're in. You're the 7, you play whoever ends up being the 2. If you're the 9 or the 10, you got to win 2 games back to back. And you know what you get? You get the 8 seed and you get to play the 1 seed. It's a mess. Traden and I were talking about it earlier. I believe his direct quote, "I have things to say about this." Traden, I'm very interested to hear what your thoughts are.
What kind of cockamamie bullshit is Adam Silver thinking? I mean, or I guess the league in general. I mean, it's the most ridiculous bullshit I've ever seen. I mean, I get the fact trying to get more teams in. That's how you make money. You market your players. I get it, but guys, come on. They're playing a 72 game season. It's not even a truncated season. It's not like, and everyone's going to be playing roughly the same amount of games. If they have to come down to percentage of points, much like the percentage of games, they may have to do that like the NHL, because some teams just might not get their games in. But guys, there's no reason to bring in a 10th and 9th seed. That we saw this. I had an issue with it in the NHL, and the only reason I was okay with it is because it was the season was cut short unexpectedly, and not all the games. No one had close in terms played, but I just don't understand how a 10th seed, who right now in the East would be the Heat, who have a 433 point percentage of games won. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, why should they even get any chance to play in the playoffs? Oh, and by the way, if they lose, they're still going to be part of the lottery, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure the NBA does the lottery the same way. It's the same fucking bullshit we saw in the NHL. And guess what? That's why the Rangers got first pick. They made it to the playoffs, lost, and they still got Alexis Lafreniere. It's absolute bullshit. It's so stupid. 1 through 8, just keep it simple. I mean, if you're told me that not every team's going to play their 72 games and it's going to be way, and there's not even close to the amount of games, or the Heat had a chance to maybe get the 8th seed if they had played all their games. So you're going to give them, that's the only time that you'd give them the shot, but everyone's going to be playing roughly the same amount of games. It's absolutely horseshit. It's so stupid. That's it. That's all I can say.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, it's definitely, they're trying to get more teams involved. The more playoff games that are on TV, more TV revenue, a larger national audience when there's only, 3 or 4 games going on in an evening. It is a little ridiculous. Boys, or other 3, you guys all had reactions. Do you any thoughts on this, since we haven't really even talked about this yet?
It's interesting. Just
Tyler talk.
sorry. Interesting.
Yeah, the white person goes first is fine.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Take that out. That was bad.
Anyway, it's interesting seeing every league's kind of response to everything, and I kind of agree with Trey. I think it's kind of overthinking it. I think that they were playing pretty dang close to a regular season already. Why add this little mini tournament at the end? That's kind of part of me, and part of me kind of thinks like, I mean, fuck it, it's COVID. It's already weird. Like, why not just make it weirder? Let's just roll with it and see what happens. Just this 1 year, let's just fuck it.
Okay, so you're not a fan of keeping this long term, though.
No, definitely not.
Okay, James.
I'm not opposed to the 10 teams getting to playoffs. Like, that's not where the issue lies for me. The issue lies for me is the fact that it's a 1-game series. Like, teams have bad shooting nights, so it's really hard to base it off one game. Like, the purpose of getting the 2 extra teams in there is to even the playing field a little bit for teams that don't necessarily go the distance, or because the season is shortened by 10 games. So who knows what could happen in those 10 games, but only giving one more extra game to play doesn't make much sense to me. Make it a best out of 3. That way, like, if a team has a bad game, they have a redemption. 1 game is tough.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I have a feeling a little bit later in this podcast, you'll have to say some other things too.
Before we finish, I mean, what is the want or the necessity to do well in the regular season if you have a 2-3 chance of making the playoffs? It's like the more teams you add in, the less of a big deal the playoffs are, right? I mean, the less teams that are in, the harder it is to get in there. The better teams are going to you're going to get better basketball. I think it's stupid.
I think with like last year in the bubble, they kind of had something like this. Remember the Trailblazers had to play the Grizzlies, the 1-game series. Whoever would have won would have played the Lakers, which ended up being the Trailblazers. But I think the NBA, like the past few years, has had like teams like the Trailblazers, the Heat. They're good teams with superstars that are like on the brink of making playoffs. So I wonder if that could be a reason they chucked them in like that this year. Like Jimmy Butler was in the finals last year. It's the first time we saw him in the finals, and he did phenomenal. This year we may, the Grizzlies slip into that last spot. We get to see Ja Morant in the playoffs for the first time ever. Maybe this was their reasoning. I don't know, but it's my take on it.
I honestly think the reason behind this is the fact that Adam Silver is banking on states reopening as time goes on.
Yes.
And so having that one extra playoff game means people can go to games and see that one playoff game. And if it's 25% capacity, it's a 25% more people than would be able to see it beforehand. So I think that adds a little bit more incentive just because of that fact.
That's fair.
That's a good point. I really like Eric's point too, because the NBA does market their stars better than the other 3 professional major sports leagues by a mile. Like, it's not even close how much better the NBA does it compared to the other 3, especially baseball. So, you want to see Dame Lillard in the playoffs. You want to see him hit shots like that. That's what brings people into the NBA. So that actually got the hand than I thought it was going to, but I liked all your takes. But moving on, one of the NBA's big stars is going to be out for a minimum of 4 weeks. That's Anthony Davis of the Lakers. He's got an Achilles injury. Tyler, as the other resident Lakers fan on this podcast, is it time to worry in Los Angeles?
A little bit, honestly, just because their start without Anthony Davis, these first four or so games they tied without him, not gone so well. They don't look good at all without him. They look pretty lost. They're also missing Dennis Schroeder right now due to health and safety protocols, so it's kind of a double whammy right now. 2 of their starters are out. LeBron can only do so much. You kind of asked me, like, what do the rest of the Lakers besides LeBron have to do? I think it just goes back to this team's identity. Like, what made them champions was their defense. I think there's been a lot of things kind of gone out of whack with having AD out, and they need to kind of reset their defensive system to, fit in the players that they have and kind of figure that out first to starve the defense. And they're also kind of right now going through a shooting slump. They're not shooting very well from three, especially I think they were like 20% from three the last two games or something really bad like that. So they're missing their star player, they're missing their starting point guard, and they're going through a slump right now shooting. So a lot of things are going bad right now. But I think the shooting will come back. Hopefully Schroeder comes back in a week or so, or whenever his health and safety protocol timeline ends. And hopefully this team kind of finds their identity without Anthony Davis. I think they will. I think this team's got a lot of depth. I mean, KCP, Caruso, Gasol, Harrell, Kuzma. Also, can we give a shout out to Kyle Kuzma, how good he's looked this year, especially defensively. I think I saw a stat he's the 5th ranked defensive player, or has the 5th best defensive rating in the NBA. And if you guys have seen any Laker games lately, he is an exciting player to watch, especially on defense, man. He's getting after it. So I want to give a big shout out to Kuzma. He has stepped up, but we need those other guys to step up as well, especially with AD being gone for a while. And the Lakers got a bunch of huge games coming up against Utah, Portland, Golden State, and Phoenix all in a row. They got those 4 games. So right now I'm not really confident we can win any of those. But I think, like I said, this team's they have a good coaching staff. They've got good depth. I think they're just going through a little bit of a slump on top of a few injuries, but they gotta click it back pretty soon here, because we're getting down to the kind of later part of the season, and like I said, a lot of huge games coming up. So the Lakers need to figure out pretty quick here.
Yeah, I'm going to be completely honest. Without AD, the Lakers cannot win a championship. I think they can still compete. I still think they can be a very good team. I just think that the West is too deep. I don't think they can get through the West without AD. He's a top 5 player in the game. Luckily for the Lakers, their depth is insane, and luckily the injury happened now instead of 2 months from now. So he's got some time to heal. Hopefully he can get his conditioning back. And Laker Nation will have to move forward from there. But speaking of LeBron, he is starting in the All-Star game once again. He was the leading vote getter in the West. Kevin Durant, leading vote getter in the East, which is pretty cool for him after coming back from all these injuries. So the West, let's go through them real quick. So Luka Doncic and Steph Curry will be in the backcourt. LeBron, Jokic, and Kawhi in the front court. In the East, Kyrie Irving and Bradley Beal in the backcourt, KD, Giannis, and Joel Embiid in the front court for the East. Eric, what do you think about the All-Star starters so far? And then do you think anyone got snubbed? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, going off of pretty much every time we talk the NBA, the West is so deep, because you see Damian Lillard is not starting, but it's because Luka Doncic and Steph Curry are starting, and they both had phenomenal seasons. Like, it doesn't take anything away from Lillard, but that's one thing. Paul George is a backup. I think he kind of went down with an injury a couple weeks ago. After we had talked about he was just rolling through this season, playing really well. That could probably play a role in what happened with that, but he's still in it nonetheless. Snub wise, Tobias Harris, I think he is like the cornerstone of that 76ers team. He's probably like the hardest worker there. He's brings his energy every day and night. But I guess as far as an all-star is concerned, that's maybe just one category that they look at. Zach Levine is nowhere to be found on an all-star roster this year. That guy's like the only noticeable player on the Bulls, probably for like the last 3 years. And he's like, at least a 30-point scorer usually every night. Devin Booker, nowhere to be found on an all-star roster this year. You look at the Suns having like the best season they've had in many, many moons, you could say. One other snub in the West, Brandon Ingram, actually. He has had a good season with the Pelicans this year. Their team is just not good, but he's been doing well. He's been putting up good numbers most nights that he's playing. I guess one other guy Actually, hold up. I got some more snubs. Hold up. DeRozan is not in the lineup. It's not that big of a snub that he's not there, but he has revamped that Spurs lineup. Harden is not starting, but that's because he kind of sat out in the beginning of the year and he had to reprove himself. He's now in the Nets, doing phenomenal, of course. Chris Paul is a wild card. He's older. He's probably got only a few seasons left in this league. I could see that. Donovan Mitchell is a backup. But, it goes back to the Luka Doncic and Steph Curry. They're more of the popular vote probably than Donovan Mitchell, but that guy is phenomenal. Nonetheless, though, these guys are in the All-Stars. They're just not the starters.
Yeah, I agree. The Zach Levine take. That guy is carrying that Bulls team, and they're in a playoff spot right now. I don't think Kyrie probably should have started. He missed a bunch of games due to COVID or personal reasons, which we have no idea what that is. But then he got in trouble for being seen out at a big family gathering. Zach Levine's been killing it. He's on my fantasy team, so that's kind of part of it too. But yeah, I think we all agreed when we talked about it last time. This All-Star game is kind of dumb. They shouldn't be having it, but it's still fun to talk about. There's always going to be snubs. There's LeBron's going to make it every year because he's LeBron. That's kind of the deal. We'll see how the rest of it kind of plays out. Last topic, Boogie Cousins is mutually parting ways with the Rockets. The Rockets have decided they want to go smaller in the front court. James, Boogie Cousins used to be a force in this league. Since he's had a lot of leg injuries, he's a big man. What can he bring to a contender if he has anything left? And where do you have a prediction on where he signs, or what are your thoughts on Boogie?
I absolutely think stuff left. Right now, Christian Wood's been out for an extended period of time due to a fracture, I believe. And Boogie Cousins filled in, and Boogie Cousins has been averaging a double-double in that time frame. He's still got it. He's still good. It may not be the 25 and 15 that we're used to, but it's 16 and 10. And that's still good enough to help out any team. He can play for any contender, honestly. Right now, though, my personal favorite would be the Lakers, mainly because they've shown that they need a big guy. AD, after he gets healthy again, will sit out multiple games due to rest anyway. The Lakers are trying to preserve him for the long run. And Boogie can be in there. And him and AD have played together in New Orleans, and they did well together. That was the MVP seasons of both AD and Boogie Cousins. They were both favorites to win the MVP that year because they were just so dominant together. And if they can create that partially with the Lakers this year, that'd be another force to be reckoned with. I love Mark to death. His IQ is super high. He can shoot the three and he can pass the ball, but he doesn't get rebounds. He doesn't really do all that much on the offensive side other than sit out there. They need somebody that can score down there. They need a secondary help, and that's what Boogie can do. He was signed to the Lakers last year before he tore his ACL, I believe. So the thought was there. He was part of that plan. They can do it again. Another team that I think he'd work well in is the Nets. Those are the two teams that's been connected with. The Nets also need a big. DeAndre Jordan is not what's advertised. DeAndre Jordan used to be good because he was athletic and could block, but that's not really where the league's going anymore. Nobody's really running into the paint all that much, and when they do, he fouls them. Fact of the matter is he can't score. So you need to score, and DeMarcus Cousins is sitting there waiting to get picked up. He's going to go to contender. He's going to contribute. Whoever picks him will be lucky to have him. He's going to come with a $3 million price tag, super light, and it's going to be great for him, for the team that gets.
Yeah, the Lakers would be an interesting pick. He already knows the system. It's the same coach. He was there all season last year. He didn't play, like you said, he was hurt. And the Nets would be interesting too. That would just be a star-studded lineup with Boogie Cousins. I hope he makes it. He's kind of gotten a bad rap over the years, but he's been a great player, and we'll see where he ends up. But Eric, that's all I got for the NBA this week.
Yeah, those are some good hot takes. All-Star break is right around the corner, everybody. We all know you'll be watching.